The stench hit Roy before anything else. Sweat, grease, and something sour that made his nose wrinkle as he pushed through the crowd at the livestock market on Gamma 7 Station. He was not supposed to be here. His plan had been simple. Grab the thruster components from the salvage dealer 2 levels down, maybe pick up some welding supplies, then head back to his workshop before the weekend rush started. But the salvage dealer had sent him here with a handwritten note. Ask for Benny. He has what you need. Roy doubted Benny had thruster components, but he had made the trip anyway. The market spread across an old cargo bay that smelled like 100 different worlds packed into one room. Cages lined the walls, stacked 3 high in some places. Things chirped and growled and hissed from inside them. Most of the buyers were alien species Roy recognized from around the station. A few humans wandered through, mostly gawkers who wanted to see exotic creatures up close. An auctioneer stood on a raised platform near the center of the bay. He was a Krillian, tall and gray-skinned with too many joints in his arms. His voice boomed through a crackling speaker system as he gestured at a cage beside him. Lot 47, Gravian Sandkat. Excellent temperament. Beautiful coat. Do I hear 200 credits? Roy pushed past a group of Vexians, arguing over something that looked like a furry snake. He spotted a parts dealer he recognized near the back wall and started toward him. Maybe this Benny person actually existed. Lot 51. The auctioneer's voice cut through the noise again. Dragon. Young. Needs work. Roy stopped walking. He turned to look at the platform. The cage they brought out was smaller than the others. Inside, a creature lay curled against the bars. Its scales were dark, almost black, but they had a dull, lifeless quality like tarnished metal. The dragon was small, maybe the size of a large dog, but Roy could tell it should have been bigger. Its ribs showed through its sides. Its wings were folded tight against its body, and one of them looked bent at a wrong angle. The crowd went quiet for a moment, then someone laughed. A human voice. That thing's half dead already. Other voices joined in. Murmurs rippled through the market. The auctioneer cleared his throat, clearly annoyed. Dragon specimen. Salvage from a failed breeding operation in the outer rings. Some medical attention required, but dragon scales alone are worth. It won't last 3 days, another voice called out. More laughter. Roy found himself moving closer to the platform. He did not know why. He had no use for a dragon. He barely had enough credits to keep his workshop running. But something about the creature in that cage pulled at him. The dragon lifted its head. Its eyes were golden, bright despite the sickness ravaging its body. Those eyes swept across the crowd, past the Krillian auctioneer, past the laughing buyers, and locked onto Roy that he felt it like a physical thing. The dragon was looking at him. Not just looking, watching, studying him with an intelligence that made his chest tighten. 50 credits, the auctioneer said, his voice flat now. Do I hear 50 credits for lot 51? Silence. Someone coughed. The dragon did not look away from Roy. His hand went up before his brain caught up with the movement. 50, Roy said. Heads turned. A few people stared at him like he had just volunteered to jump out an airlock. The auctioneer blinked all 4 of his eyes. 50 credits to the human in the back. Do I hear 60? More silence. The dragon's tail twitched once. Its eyes still had not left Roy's face. Sold. Lot 51 to the human for 50 credits. Roy pushed through the crowd to the payment station. His hands were steady as he transferred the credits, but his mind was racing. What was he doing? He did not know anything about dragons. He could barely afford to feed himself most weeks. This was stupid, reckless. But when they brought the cage down from the platform and set it at his feet, and he looked through the bars at that golden-eyed creature, something in his chest settled into place. You are making a mistake, someone said behind him. Roy turned. It was another human, older, with grease-stained coveralls similar to Roy's own. That thing is dying. You just threw away 50 credits. Roy bent down and picked up the cage. It was lighter than it should have been. The dragon inside shifted slightly, its breathing shallow and quick. Maybe, Roy said, but it's my mistake to make. He carried the cage through the market, past the staring faces and shaking heads. Someone muttered something about stupid humans and their soft hearts. Roy ignored them all. The dragon had gone quiet again, but he could feel its eyes on him through the bars. The walk back to his workshop took 20 minutes. By the time he keyed in his entry code and stepped inside, his arms were aching and his mind was full of questions he did not have answers for. He set the cage down on his workbench, next to a half-assembled fuel pump and a stack of data pads he kept meaning to organize. The workshop was small. One main room with his tools and equipment scattered across every surface. A cot in the corner where he slept most nights. A tiny bathroom that barely functioned. It was not much, but it was as though he looked at the cage. The dragon looked back. "Well," Roy said quietly. "Now what?" Roy spent the first hour just staring at the cage. The dragon stared back. Neither of them moved much. Outside the workshop, the station hummed with its usual noise. Footsteps in the corridor. The distant clang of machinery. Voices arguing in a language Roy did not recognize. Inside, there was only silence and those golden eyes that he had no plan. No idea what dragons ate or needed or how to keep one alive. His data pad gave him nothing useful when he searched for dragon care. Most of the results were about dragon hunting, dragon scale harvesting, or luxury dragon estates for the wealthy. Nothing about helping a sick one survive. Roy stood and moved to his storage locker. He kept emergency supplies there. Ration bars, water packets, a medical kit he had never used. He pulled out a thermal blanket, the kind designed for people trapped in damaged ships. It would hold heat. That seemed important. Then he grabbed the synth meat from his cooler. It was supposed to be his dinner, but he could skip a meal. He had done it before, that he set everything on the floor near the cage, then sat down cross-legged in front of it. The dragon watched every movement. "I'm going to open this," Roy said. His voice sounded too loud in the quiet workshop. "You can run if you want, but I have food and a blanket, and it's warm in here." He reached for the cage latch. His fingers hesitated for just a moment. What if the dragon attacked? What if it had enough strength left to bite or claw? Roy had seen the small teeth when its mouth had opened back at the auction. He pushed the thought away and opened the latch. The door swung outward with a rusty creak. Roy pulled his hand back and waited. The dragon did not move. Minutes passed. Roy stayed still, watching. The dragon's sides rose and fell with rapid, shallow breaths. Its wings twitched once. Then, slowly, it lifted its head and crawled forward. Not fast. Each movement looked like it cost something. Its claws scraped against the metal floor of the cage as it dragged itself toward the opening. When it reached the edge, it stopped and looked at Roy again. "Come on," Roy said softly. "You're okay." The dragon pulled itself out of the cage and collapsed on the workshop floor. Its legs would not hold it. Roy could see that clearly now. Whatever had been done to this creature had left it broken in ways that went beyond just hunger. He pushed the synth meat closer. The dragon sniffed it once, then tore into it with desperate bites. It ate like it had not seen food in weeks. Probably it had not. Roy watched, something tight and angry building in his chest. Who had let this happen? Who had looked at this creature and decided it was not worth feeding? When the meat was gone, the dragon looked at the water packet. Roy opened it and poured some into a shallow dish from his cleaning supplies. The dragon drank until the dish was empty. Then it looked at Roy again. Its breathing had slowed a little. Some of the frantic edge in its eyes had faded. Roy picked up the thermal blanket and unfolded it. He spread on the floor between them. "You should rest. You look like you need it." The dragon stared at the blanket, then at Roy. It made a sound, low and rough, somewhere between a growl and a whimper. Then it started moving again, not toward the blanket. Toward Roy. He froze. The dragon crawled across the floor, its movement still weak but determined. It reached his leg and kept going, climbing onto his lap with claws that dug through his coveralls. Roy's hands hovered in the air, not sure what to do. The dragon curled against his chest. Its body was warmer than he expected, but not hot. Just warm, like holding a sun-heated stone. It tucked its head under his chin and went still. Its breathing even out. Roy sat there, afraid to move. The dragon's weight pressed against him. He could feel its heartbeat, fast but steady. Could feel the rise and fall of its ribs with each breath. Slowly, carefully, he lowered one hand to rest on its back. The scales felt rough and dry. They should have been smooth, he thought. Shiny. Whatever made dragon scales valuable was missing from this one. It was just rough, dull, plating over fragile bones. The dragon made another sound. This one was different. A soft rumble that vibrated through its whole body. It reminded Roy of the old combustion engines he sometimes worked on, the way they purred when everything was running right. Okay, Roy whispered. Okay, I've got you. He had no idea if the dragon understood him. It did not matter. The creature had chosen his lap over the blanket, his chest over freedom. That had to mean something. Roy lost track of time. He sat on the floor of his workshop with a dying dragon curled against him. And for the first time in months, maybe years, he did not feel alone. His back started to ache. His legs went numb. He did not care. At some point, he started talking. Just quiet words about nothing important. He told the dragon about the fuel pump on his workbench, about how the Vexian trader who owned it had tried to fix it himself and made everything worse. He talked about the station, about the jobs he had lined up for next week, about how the air recyclers on this level always smelled faintly of burnt plastic. The dragon's rumbling never stopped. It was still purring when Roy finally shifted enough to grab the thermal blanket and drape it over both of them. Still purring when his eyes started to drift closed. "You need a name," Roy muttered. His voice was rough with exhaustion. "Can't just keep calling you dragon." He looked down at the dark scales, at the creature that had been dismissed as worthless. Its color reminded him of coal, of soot and ash and things that had been burned but still held heat. "Soot," he said. "That work for you?" The purring got louder. Roy smiled. It felt strange on his face, like he had forgotten how. "Soot it is, then." He leaned his head back against the wall and closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would figure out what came next. Tonight he just sat in his workshop with Soot pressed against his chest, both of them breathing, both of them alive, both of them less alone than they had been that morning. 3 weeks passed faster than Roy expected. Soot grew stronger, not in size, but in presence. The dragon still could not fly, its bent wing healing too slowly for that, but it could walk now without collapsing. The dull scales had started to develop a faint sheen, like polished stone instead of tarnished metal. Soot followed Roy everywhere. When he worked on engines, the dragon perched on a nearby shelf, watching with those golden eyes. When he went to get supplies from the market 2 levels down, Soot rode on his shoulder, claws gripping his coveralls for balance. People stared. Roy stopped caring. The first client to notice was a Krillian merchant named Drell. He had brought in a damaged NAV system from his cargo hauler and stood in the workshop doorway, all 4 eyes blinking at Soot. "That is a dragon," Drell said. "Yes." Roy did not look up from the NAV system circuit board. Soot sat on the workbench beside him, tail curled around a canister of bolts. "Dragons are expensive." This one was not. Drell moved closer, his multiple joints bending in ways that always made Roy's spine hurt just watching. "I know people who would pay good money for a dragon, even a small one." Roy set down his tools and looked at Drell directly. "Not for sale. I am simply saying not for sale. Not now. Not ever." Roy picked up his tools again. "Your NAV system will be ready tomorrow. 50 credits. Drell left without another word. But the next day, another client asked about Soot. Then another. Word was spreading through the station faster than Roy had anticipated. A Vexian trader offered 200 credits. Roy said no. A human cargo pilot offered 500. Roy said no again, more firmly. A wealthy-looking alien in expensive robes offered 1,000 credits and seemed genuinely shocked when Roy told him to leave the workshop. "You do not understand," the alien had said. 1,000 credits could change your life." Roy had looked at Soot, who was sleeping on his cot in the corner. "I'm not interested in changing my life. I like it fine the way it is." That was mostly true. The workshop still smelled like grease and ozone. His cot was still uncomfortable. His bank account still hovered dangerously close to empty. But now when he worked late into the night, Soot was there. When he ate his meager dinners, he shared them with the dragon. When he woke up in the morning, golden eyes were watching him from across the room, and that rumbling purr would start up as soon as Roy moved. That IT was different. Better. He had not realized how much silence could weigh on a person until it was gone. On the 23rd day after the auction, A corvèche arrived at the workshop. Roy knew what a corvèche was. Everyone did. They were collectors, hoarders of rare and valuable things. This one wore elaborate robes that probably cost more than Roy made in a year. His face was angular and sharp, his eyes cold. "I'm looking for Roy Beckett," the corvèche said. "You found him." Roy was elbow deep in a coolant system, so it was perched on his shoulder, as usual. "I'm told you have a dragon. Eat dough. I want to buy it." Roy pulled his arm out of the coolant system and wiped his hands on a rag. "No, you have not heard my offer. Do not need to. Soot is not for sale." The corvèche's expression did not change, but something in the air shifted. "Soot, you named it. Him. And yes, I will pay 10,000 credits." Roy felt Soot's claws tighten on his shoulder. The dragon had gone very still, the way he did when strangers came too close. "No. 15,000. I said no." "You are a mechanic," the corvèche said, his voice sharp now. "You live in this tiny workshop. You survive on scraps. I'm offering you enough money to buy a real home, a real business. You could leave this station entirely." Roy set down the rag and stood up straight. He was shorter than the corvèche, but he did not step back. "I like my workshop. I like this station. And I'm not selling Soot. Leave." The corvèche stared at him for a long moment. Then his mouth curved into something that was not quite a smile. "Dragons are classified as livestock under station law. Did you know that? They could be seized if they're being improperly cared for, if they're being kept in unsuitable conditions. Soot is fine. This workshop is barely suitable for a human, let alone a dragon. I could file a report with station security. They would investigate. They might decide the dragon needs to be removed for its own safety." Roy's jaw tightened. Soot made a low sound, almost a growl. "Get out of my workshop. Think about my offer, mechanic. 10,000 credits. Or I file that report tomorrow." The corvèche turned and walked out, his robes sweeping across the floor. Roy stood there for a long time after the door closed. His hands were shaking. Soot nuzzled against his neck, the purring sound trying to come back, but not quite making it. "It's okay," Roy said quietly. "He's just trying to scare us." But he was scared. He had looked up dragon ownership laws after buying Soot. The corvèche was right. Legally, dragons were property. If someone filed a complaint, security would have to investigate. And if they decided Roy could not properly care for Soot, they could take him away. That night, Roy could not sleep. He sat on his cot with Soot curled beside him, one hand resting on the dragon's back. The scales were smoother now, warmer. Soot's breathing was deep and even. Healthy to a knock on the workshop door made them both jump. Roy checked the time. Past midnight. He got up slowly and checked the door's security camera. Rita Chun stood outside. She was the station security captain on this level, and Roy had fixed her patrol vehicle twice in the past year. She was human, which was rare in station security. She did not smile much, but she was fair. Roy opened the door. "Rito." "Roy." She glanced past him at Soot, who was watching her from the cot. "Can I come in?" He stepped aside. She walked in and looked around the workshop. Her eyes took in everything. The tools, the half-finished projects, the small space where Roy clearly lived and worked. Then she looked at Soot again. "A corvèche filed a complaint this evening," she said. "Claims you are keeping a dragon in unsuitable conditions." Roy's stomach dropped. He was here earlier. Try to buy Soot. I refused. I thought that might be the case. Rita moved closer to the cot. Soot did not growl or hiss. He just watched her with those intelligent eyes. "I have to do an official inspection. That is the law. I understand." Rita spent 20 minutes examining the workshop. She checked the temperature controls, the ventilation, the space available. She looked at Soot's food and water supplies. She even pulled up medical information about dragons on her datapad and compared it to what she saw. Finally, she turned to Roy. "The dragon appears healthy." "Better than healthy, actually. The complaint mentioned it was near death when you bought it." "He was. Not anymore." Rita looked at Soot again. The dragon had relaxed, the purring sound filling the workshop. "Can I ask you something, Roy?" "Sure. Why did you buy him? You barely make enough to keep yourself fed. A dragon is expensive to care for." Roy was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because nobody else would." And he looked at me like he knew I would help him. Rita nodded slowly. I'm going to file my report. It will say the dragon is in good health and being properly cared for. The complaint will be dismissed. Relief flooded through Roy. Thank you. But Roy, Rita's expression was serious. That Corvesh has money and connections. If he wants your dragon badly enough, he will find other ways to come after you. Be careful. After she left, Roy locked the door and went back to his cot. Soot climbed onto his lap immediately, seeking the comfort he always did. Roy wrapped his arms around the dragon and held him close. We will figure this out, he whispered. I promise. Soot purred against his chest, trusting completely. Roy just hoped he could keep that promise. The attack came 6 days later, deep in the station's night cycle, when most businesses were closed and the corridors were empty. Roy woke to a sound he had never heard before. Soot was screaming, not growling or hissing, but a high, piercing shriek that cut through his sleep like a blade. He rolled off his cot. Already reaching for the plasma torch, he kept near his tools. 3 figures were in the workshop. They must have bypassed his lock somehow. 2 were holding shock sticks, the kind used for livestock control. The third had a reinforced net and was trying to throw it over Soot. The dragon was fighting. His small body moved faster than Roy had seen before, darting between their legs. Wings spread, even though he could not fly. Small jets of flame shot from his mouth. Not enough to seriously hurt anyone, but enough to make them curse and stumble back. Get away from him! Roy shouted. The closest intruder spun toward him. It was a Vexian, face hidden behind a breathing mask. He lunged with a shock stick. Roy dodged and swung the plasma torch. The bright, cutting flame hissed through the air between them. The Vexian jumped back. Soot screamed again. Roy turned and saw the net descending. The dragon tried to dodge, but his bent wing threw off his balance. The net caught him, tangling around his legs and wings. He thrashed, desperate, flames spurting wildly. Something hot and furious surged through Roy's chest. He charged forward, not thinking, just moving. He grabbed the net with his free hand and pulled hard. The intruder, holding it, stumbled forward. Roy brought the plasma torch around in a wide arc. The flame cut through the air, close enough that the intruder could feel the heat. The alien let go of the net and scrambled backward. Security has been called, Roy yelled. He had no idea if that was true, but he said it anyway. You have maybe 2 minutes before they get here. The second Vexian grabbed the one with the net. We need to go. Now. Not without the dragon, the third one said. He was human, which somehow made it worse. A human working with aliens to steal Soot. Roy moved between them and the net. Soot was still tangled inside it, still fighting. You're not touching him. The human pulled something from his belt. A stunner. He pointed it at Roy. Move aside. We do not want to hurt you, but we will. Roy kept the plasma torch raised. His heart was hammering against his ribs. He was terrified, but he did not move. Then you'll have to hurt me, because I am not moving. For a moment, nobody moved. The human's finger hovered over the stunner's trigger. Roy tried to remember if his workshop door was locked from the inside, if he could get to the emergency alarm, if anyone would even hear it at this hour. Then the door burst open. Rita Chun came through first, her weapon drawn. 2 more security officers followed, both armed. The intruders froze. Drop your weapons, Rita ordered. Now. The stunner clattered to the floor. The shock sticks followed. The Vexians had their hands up immediately. The human looked like he was considering running, then thought better of it. Rita's officers moved in, securing the intruders with quick efficiency. Rita walked over to Roy. You okay? I am fine. Roy knelt beside the net and started pulling it off Soot. His hands were shaking now that the danger had passed. Soot, hey, I've got you. You are okay. The dragon went still as soon as he heard Roy's voice. The frantic energy drained out of him. As the net came free, he launched himself at Roy's chest, claws digging in, body pressed as close as he could get. The purring was desperate, shaking through both of them. They tried to take him, Roy said. His voice came out rough. I know. Rita was reviewing something on her datapad. Your security system sent an alert to our network. We got here as fast as we could. Roy blinked. My security system? The upgraded one. Someone anonymously installed it 3 days ago. Rita showed him the datapad screen. very high-end, tied directly into station security with priority alerts. Roy did not know what to say. Someone had done that. For him, one of Rita's officers was scanning the intruders. These three all have records. Hard muscle mostly. They work for whoever pays. Who hired them? Roy asked. The human looked at the floor. The Vexian said nothing. Rita crossed her arms. We'll find out. They will talk eventually, or we will track the payment. Either way, someone is going to answer for this. They took the intruders away in restraints. Rita stayed behind, helping Roy check the workshop for damage. The lock had been bypassed with professional tools. A few of his smaller projects had been knocked over in the struggle. Otherwise, everything was intact. You should get a medical check, Rita said. You and the dragon both. We are fine. Roy. He sighed. Fine. Tomorrow. Right now, I just want to make sure my workshop is secure again. Rita noidit. She started to leave, then stopped at the door. For what it is worth, you did good. A lot of people would have run when that stunner came out. After she left, Roy sat on the floor with soot in his lap. The dragon had not let go of him since the net came off. His claws were still digging into Roy's coveralls hard enough to hurt, but Roy did not care. He wrapped both arms around Soot and held him tight. You were so brave, he whispered. Fighting like that. I'm so proud of you. Soot's purring intensified, his head tucked under Roy's chin. They sat like that for a long time. The next morning, Roy discovered the security upgrade was not the only anonymous gift. Someone had left a crate outside his workshop door. Inside were premium dragon supplements, heat lamps designed specifically for reptilian species, and medical supplies that must have cost a fortune. There was no note, no name, just supplies he desperately needed and could never have afforded. When he opened the workshop for business later that day, 3 humans he knew from around the station showed up. One was a cargo pilot named Davis. Another was a medic named Nora. The third was an engineer called Wilson who worked in the station's power systems. We heard what happened, Davis said. Wanted to make sure you were okay. I am fine. Thank you for asking. We also wanted to let you know, Nora said. If you need anything, you just ask. Tools, supplies, extra security. Whatever you need. Wilson nodded. Humans look out for each other on this station. And that dragon of yours? He is one of us now, too. Roy felt something tight in his throat. He had lived on Gamma 7 for 3 years and had never felt like he belonged to anything. He worked alone, lived alone, existed in his workshop like a ghost. But now these people were standing in his doorway, offering help without expecting anything in return. I do not know what to say, he managed. You do not have to say anything, Davis said. Just know you're not alone in this. Whatever that Corvesh is planning, he will have to go through all of us to get to your dragon. After they left, Roy closed the workshop door and leaned against it. So was watching him from the workbench, head tilted in that curious way he had. We have friends, Roy said, like he was testing the words. When did that happen? So chirped once, then hopped down from the workbench and walked over. He climbed up Roy's leg and perched on his shoulder, rubbing his head against Roy's neck. Roy smiled. For the first time since the Corvesh had walked into his workshop, he felt like maybe things would be okay. He was not fighting this battle alone anymore. Neither was Soot, and that made all the difference. The challenge arrived as an official document delivered by a station magistrate. Roy read it 3 times, trying to understand what he was looking at. A bonding trial? He asked. The magistrate was a Krillian, different from the auctioneer, but with the same unsettling number of joints. She nodded. It is an ancient custom, recognized under station law. When 2 parties claim rightful ownership of a dragon based on bonding, a trial is held to determine the true bond. I own Soot. I bought him legally. The Corvesh claims the dragon did not choose you. He claims it was too sick to make a proper choice. He is invoking his right to challenge the bond. The magistrate's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. If you refuse, the dragon will be confiscated and placed in neutral custody until the legal dispute is resolved. That could take years. Roy looked at Soot, who was perched on the back of his chair. The dragon had grown noticeably in the past weeks. Still smaller than he should be, but healthier. His scales shone now, black with hints of deep blue when the light hit them right. His bent wing had healed enough that he could glide short distances. What happens in a bonding trial? Roy asked. Both parties stand in a neutral space. The dragon is placed between them at equal distance. Whoever the dragon chooses is recognized as the rightful bonded partner. The choice is considered absolute and final. It was a trap. Roy knew it was a trap. The Corvesh had money, status, everything that dragon culture supposedly valued. Roy was just a mechanic who lived in a workshop that smelled like oil and burnt circuits. But if he refused, he would lose Soot anyway. At least this way, there was a chance. When? Roy asked. 3 days. Station Arena 9. Witnesses will be present to verify the choice is made freely. The next 3 days were the longest of Roy's life. He tried to work on his projects, tried to act normal, but everything felt wrong. Soot knew something was happening. Dragons were smart. He stayed closer than usual, barely leaving Roy's side even to eat. Other humans came by the workshop. Davis brought food. Nora checked Soot's health readings for the 5th time. Wilson installed additional locks on the door, just in case. They all said the same thing. Soot would choose Roy. Of course he would. Anyone could see the bond between them. Roy wanted to believe it. But doubt crept in during the quiet hours. What if Soot saw the Corvesh and recognized wealth, power, the kind of life a dragon deserved? What if Roy had just been convenient, a temporary comfort until something better came along? On the morning of the trial, Rita showed up at the workshop in her formal security uniform. Ready? Roy was not ready. Would never be ready. But he picked up Soot and nodded. Let's go. Arena 9 was a large open space usually used for cargo sorting. Today it had been cleared, a simple arena marked out on the floor. Witnesses lined the walls. Roy recognized some of them. Other mechanics and traders from the station. A few aliens who had been clients of his over the years. More people than he expected. The Corvesh stood on the far side of the arena. He wore robes, even more elaborate than before, covered in patterns that probably meant something in dragon culture. Behind him stood 3 attendants carrying what looked like expensive gifts. Gold chains, jeweled collars, things that screamed wealth and status. Roy wore his cleanest coveralls and his work boots. He carried nothing except Soot, who was wrapped around his shoulders with his tail curled around Roy's arm. The magistrate stood at the center of the arena. Roy Beckett, you may place the dragon in the designated zone. There is a circle marked on the floor, exactly halfway between Roy and the Corvesh. Roy walked forward slowly. Soot's claws tightened on his shoulder. It is okay, Roy whispered. Whatever you choose, it is okay. He set Soot down in the circle. The dragon looked up at him, confusion in those golden eyes. Roy stepped back, retreating to his side of the arena. Each step felt like pulling against gravity. When he reached his position, the magistrate spoke again. The bonding trial will now begin. The dragon must choose freely, without coercion. Any attempt to influence the choice will result in immediate disqualification. The Corvesh stepped forward. His voice rang out across the arena. Noble dragon, I offer you a home worthy of your heritage. Estates on 3 worlds. Servants to attend your every need. The finest foods, the most comfortable dwellings. You will want for nothing. You will be honored as dragons deserve to be honored. His attendants held up the gifts. They sparkled in the arena's harsh lighting. The crowd murmured. Soot looked at the Corvesh, looked at the shiny objects. His head tilted, curious. Roy's heart sank. Of course Soot would be interested. What dragon would not be? The Corvesh continued. You have been living in poverty with a human who cannot provide for you properly. I can give you everything. Choose wisely, dragon. Choose the life you deserve. The arena went quiet. Everyone waited. Soot turned and looked at Roy. Roy did not know what to do. He had not prepared speech, had not thought about what he would say. He just stood there, hands empty, tools still on his belt because he had forgotten to take them off before leaving the workshop. He was just Roy, just a mechanic who fixed broken things and lived in a workshop too small for one person, let alone a dragon. He knelt down on one knee, made himself smaller, less imposing. I do not have much to offer, Roy said quietly. His voice did not carry like the Corvesh's had. People in the back probably could not hear him. That was fine. He was only talking to Soot anyway. Just a workshop that leaks heat in the winter cycle. Food when I can afford it. A cot we have to share because there is no room for 2 beds. Soot took one step toward him. But you already know all that, Roy continued. You have been living it for weeks now, so I'm not going to promise you things I cannot give you. I just want you to know that whatever you choose, I understand. If you want the estates and the servants and the comfortable life, I get it. You deserve all of that. Soot took another step. Then another. Roy's throat felt tight. You will always be Soot to me. The dragon who was brave enough to keep fighting even when he was dying. Who was smart enough to trust someone who probably looked just as broken as you were. Soot broke into a run. His wings spread, catching air, letting him glide the last few feet. He crashed into Roy's chest hard enough to knock him backward. His claws dug in, his tail wrapped around Roy's waist, his head pushed under Roy's chin. The purring started immediately, so loud it echoed through the arena. Roy wrapped his arms around Soot and held on. His eyes burned. He did not care who saw. The dragon has chosen, the magistrate announced. The bond is confirmed. Roy Beckett is recognized as the rightful bonded partner. The Corvesh's face twisted with rage. This is a mistake. The dragon is clearly confused. It does not understand what it is rejecting. Rita stepped forward, her hand on her weapon. The trial is over. The choice was clear. Leave now, or I will escort you out. You cannot do this. I demand a recount, a new trial. There will be no new trial, the magistrate said firmly. Dragon bonding is absolute. The creature chose freely. Your challenge is denied. The Corvesh stared at Roy with pure hatred. Then he turned and swept out of the arena, his attendants scrambling to follow with their rejected gifts. The crowd erupted. Oman's Cherat. Even some of the aliens looked pleased. Davis clapped Roy on the shoulder, so hard he nearly fell over. Nora was grinning. Wilson gave him a thumbs up from across the arena. Roy barely noticed any of it. He was too focused on Soot, who had not let go of him, who was still purring, still clinging to him like Roy was the most valuable thing in the galaxy. You chose me, Roy whispered. Even with all that on offer, you still chose me. Soot chirped and rubbed his head against Roy's neck. The message was clear. Of course, he had chosen Roy. There had never been any other choice. Not really. Rita walked over as the crowd began to disperse. You okay? Better than okay, Roy said. He stood up, Soot still wrapped around him. I need to get back to the workshop. I have 3 jobs waiting. With your dragon? Roy smiled. He is not going anywhere without me. And I am not going anywhere without him. Rito noidid. That is what bonding means, Roy. You understand that now, right? This is permanent. For both of you. Roy looked at Soot, at the golden eyes watching him with complete trust. At the creature who had chosen poverty and cramped workshops, and a mechanic who barely made enough to survive over everything the galaxy could offer. I understand, Roy said, and I would not have it any other way. For months after the bonding trial, Roy's workshop looked different. It was still cramped, still smelled like oil and burnt circuits, but now there was a second heat lamp in the corner. A proper sleeping area for Soot with cushions that Nora had helped him pick out. Shelves specifically designed to hold dragon-safe perches. Soot had grown. Not huge, but bigger than the dying creature Roy had carried out of the auction. His wings were fully healed now, strong enough to carry him around the workshop in short flights. His scales gleamed like polished obsidian. When he breathed fire to help Roy heat metal for welding, the flames came out in controlled, precise jets. They worked together now. Soot had learned to hold tools in his claws, to position heat lamps, to fetch parts from high shelves Roy could not reach without a ladder. Some clients thought it was strange to see a dragon working in a repair shop. Most thought it was incredible. Business was better than it had ever been. People came from other levels of the station just to see the mechanic with the dragon. They stayed because Roy's work was good and his prices were fair. The workshop that had barely kept Roy fed now made enough that he could afford real meals and proper supplies. But something was changing. Roy could feel it in the way Soot would sometimes stand at the workshop door and look down the corridor, in the way his head would turn when other creatures passed by. The dragon was happy, Roy knew that. But there was something else, a restlessness that had nothing to do with the bond between them. The answer came on a cold cycle morning when someone knocked on the workshop door before Roy had even opened for business. He checked the security camera and saw an alien he did not recognize. Tall, scaled, with wing ridges on his back that marked him as a dragonkin species. Roy opened the door. "Can I help you? Are you Roy Beckett, the one who bonded with the rescue dragon?" "I am." The alien bowed slightly. "My name is Torin. I am an elder of the dragonkin clans. I have come a long way to speak with you." Roy let him in. Soot immediately flew over and landed on Roy's shoulder, watching Torin with cautious eyes. The elder's gaze softened when he saw the dragon. "He has healed well. I am glad to see it. You know about Soot?" "I know about all dragons," Torin said. "It is my purpose to watch over them, to ensure they are treated with the respect they deserve. When I heard about a human mechanic who won a bonding trial against a wealthy Corvesh, I had to see for myself." He moved closer, and Soot did not hiss or pull away. Torin reached out one clawed hand, and Soot sniffed it carefully before allowing the touch. "You have done well with him," Torin said. "But I wonder if you understand why he chose you." "Because I was there when he needed someone," Roy said. "Because I did not care that he was sick or worthless by everyone else's standards. That is part of it. But there is more." Torin pulled his hand back and looked at Roy directly. "Dragons do not bond with status or wealth. They bond with souls. They can sense things about a person that go deeper than words or appearance. This dragon sensed something in you, mechanic. A gift. A gift. The gift of mending. Not just machines, but broken things of all kinds. Broken bodies. Broken spirits." Torin gestured around the workshop. "How many damaged projects have you fixed in here? How many things that other mechanics said were beyond repair?" Roy thought about the NAV system that 3 other mechanics had given up on. The engine that should have been scrapped, but he had rebuilt from parts. The door that had been stuck for 2 years until he spent 6 hours figuring out the problem. "A lot," he admitted. "And you do not turn them away, even when the pay is poor. Even when it would be easier to say no. People need their things fixed. I can help, so I do." Torin smiled. It was a strange expression on his alien face, but genuine. "That is the gift. That is why this dragon chose you." He recognized a soul that fixes what is broken. Roy did not know what to say to that. Soot nuzzled against his neck, purring. "I came here to ask you something," Torin continued. "There are more dragons like this one. Sick, injured, abandoned by breeders who only see profit. Most die before anyone notices. Some are sold to people who do not care for them properly. A few are lucky enough to survive until someone like me can intervene. That is horrible. Yes, and I cannot save them all. I am one person, and the galaxy is vast." Torin paused. "But you have something I do not. You have a dragon who trusts you completely. Other dragons will sense that bond. They will know you are safe." Roy's heart started beating faster. "What are you asking me to do? Help me." "There is a young dragon in the medical bay 2 stations over. She was rescued from fighting ring. Her wings are broken, her spirit nearly destroyed. The medics do not know how to help her, but I think you might." Roy looked at Soot. The dragon was watching him with those intelligent golden eyes, waiting to see what Roy would decide. "I am just a mechanic," Roy said. "I do not know anything about healing dragons. You healed this one. That was different. I just gave him food and a place to sleep," and Roy stopped, realized what he was saying. "I gave him what he needed." "Exactly. And that is all the other dragon needs. Someone who will see her as more than damaged property. Someone who will give her a chance to heal." Torin's expression was serious. "I am not asking you to save every dragon in the galaxy. Just this one. And if it works, perhaps the next one after that." Roy thought about his workshop, about the space that was already too small for him and Soot, about his schedule that was already packed with repair jobs, about all the logical reasons to say no. Then he thought about Soot curled in that auction cage, dying, while everyone laughed and walked away. He thought about those golden eyes looking at him like he was the only hope left in the universe. He thought about what his life had been before Soot and what it was now. "Where is she?" Roy asked. Torin's smile widened. "I have transport arranged. We can leave within the hour." They brought the injured dragon back to Gamma 7 that same day. Her name, Torin said, was Ash. She was smaller than Soot, her scales a pale gray that should have been silver. Her wings were splinted, her body covered in scars. She hissed when anyone came close except Soot, who sat near her and made soft chirping sounds until she calmed down. Roy's workshop was definitely too small now. Davis helped him requisition a storage bay 2 doors down. Wilson got the power systems running. Nora brought medical supplies. Within a week, Roy had a second space dedicated to dragon recovery. Ash healed slowly, but she healed. And while she did, word spread. Torrin sent another dragon, then another. A cargo pilot brought in a dragon she had found abandoned on a colony world. Rita showed up with a dragon that had been confiscated from an illegal breeder. Roy's workshop became a sanctuary. He still did repair jobs, still fixed engines and NAV systems and whatever else people brought him. But now he also fixed dragons. He learned about their dietary needs, their environmental requirements, the careful way their wings had to be splinted to heal properly, so it was always there helping with the new arrivals, calming them when they were scared, showing them it was safe to trust the strange human who smelled like machine oil and spoke in quiet, steady tones. Other humans joined the effort. Davis quit his cargo pilot job to help full-time. Nora reduced her hours at the medical bay to focus on dragon care. Wilson designed better heating systems. The sanctuary grew from 1 storage bay to 3, then to an entire level of the station that had been scheduled for decommission 0.6 months after meeting Torrin. Roy stood in the main recovery area and looked around at what they had built. 15 dragons in various stages of healing. Some would stay permanently too damaged to survive on their own. Others would eventually be released to sanctuaries on worlds where dragons could live freely. Soot landed on his shoulder, heavier now that he was nearly full-grown. The dragon surveyed their work with the same satisfaction Roy felt. "We did this," Roy said quietly. "All of this because you looked at me in that auction house and decided I was worth trusting." Soot purred and rubbed his head against Roy's cheek. A new dragon arrived that evening. Smaller than Soot had been, barely breathing, carried in by a trader who had found it on a derelict ship. Roy took the carrying case and brought it into the recovery area. He opened it carefully and looked inside. The dragon's eyes were barely open, but they found Roy immediately. Watched him with that same desperate hope he had seen before. Roy smiled. "Hey there, friend. Let's get you fixed up." He lifted the dragon out gently, feeling its fragile body trembling in his hands. Soot hopped down from his shoulder and chirped a greeting. The new dragon's eyes tracked the sound, and some of the fear in them faded. Roy carried the dragon to a prepared recovery bay. Heat lamps, soft bedding, food, and water already waiting. He set the dragon down and stepped back, giving it space. After a moment, it crawled out of the case and looked around. Looked at Roy, looked at Soot, then it made a sound. Soft, questioning, hopeful. "You are safe now," Roy promised. "You are home." And as he said it, he realized he was not just talking to the dragon. He was talking to himself too. This sanctuary, this purpose, this life he had built around fixing broken things and giving them second chances. This was home. Not the cramped workshop where he had lived alone for so long. This place, these dragons, these people who had come together to help. Soot purred agreement, settling down beside the new arrival. Within minutes, the small dragon had curled against Soot's side, breathing easier for the first time in who knew how long. Roy watched them for a while, then went to check on the other dragons. There was always work to do, always another creature that needed help, always another broken thing waiting to be mended, and he would not have it any other way.